Oh no.
Oh no is right.
Hello, everyone. I think we are just getting ready to go live. You are in the right place. So please give everyone else just a moment to get here as well. And then we will kick off in just a couple seconds. And maybe as you're joining, and if you want to pop in with it is the season, the holiday season. If there's one holiday tradition that you're most looking forward to this month, share it with us all. We'd love to see what you guys are working and excited for. The food is, I am with you after eating maybe way too much food last week. Oh, family vacation to PR. I love that. All right. Well, as we continue to see those traditions and what you're excited about this holiday season, I will kick us off. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Danielle and me today. We're just so excited to have you here for the session on how employers like yourselves can better prepare for spring recruiting. It's one of the most critical moments in the early talent calendar. I am Diane Malchione, and I lead our customer success teams here at Handshake, and I will be your host for today's session. As many of you know, spring is just such a pivotal time to reach and engage early career talent and employers who show up with clarity, with authenticity. They're really able to reach, engage, and hire that next generation of qualified talent faster. Spring is, like I mentioned, one of the most active periods for early talent on our platform. Internship and full-time applications really peak between January and March. And last spring alone, our students generated over 71 million job views. So they were really out there searching for their first internships and jobs. So what does that mean for you all, for your employers, for you as employers? It means that showing up early with really clear skill expectations, what your pay is like and your benefits, and showing up with an authentic brand story really gives you an advantage. And the organizations that do that are consistently winning the highest intent applicants before competition spikes later in the season. So today we're going to dig into what that looks like in practice and how you can set your team up for success with this upcoming spring recruiting. And with that, I'm thrilled to welcome our guest, Danielle Watson from Alvarez and Marsal. Danielle is a seasoned talent leader with really deep expertise in early career talent strategies, employer branding, building scalable, skills-aligned recruiting programs. If you've seen her work or you followed her thought leadership, you absolutely know she brings tremendous insight into how organizations can stay competitive in this really rapidly evolving talent landscape. Danielle, we're so excited to have you here with us today. Thanks for joining.
Well, thank you for thinking of me and asking me to join. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Diane, and welcome to everybody who's joining today and taking time out of your day to be here. I am super excited to be here. As mentioned, I've spent my whole career practically in early talent, so have seen lots of different shifts over the years. Obviously, it's a really exciting and kind of unique time to be part of early talent right now. So I am thrilled to be here. So
awesome. We're great. We're excited to get started. And maybe just to give the folks here that are with us some context, I know that you've built the Alvarez and Marsal's early talent program from the ground up, but can you tell everyone here a little bit about just how you got started, how you scaled your approach?
yeah, I would love to. So I have been at Alvarez and Marsal for almost 2 years. And when I first started at the firm, it did exist. It existed a little bit, but it kind of existed in pockets. Sorry, I'm having some camera difficulties. Oh, my back. Here we go.
You're back.
All right, perfect. It did exist in pockets. So kind of siloed approaches. For those of us who've been in early talent for a long time, we all know that the best branding and the best way to get candidates interacting with you is to have a little bit more of a unified approach. And that just wasn't really taking place here, mostly because early talent was pretty new. And, our firm specifically had relied on a lot of more experienced talent. So shifting over to this mindset of early talent was, it was happening in pockets. So when I started, what I did was I had just intake calls with everyone, with all of our different business units, with the recruiters, professionals who were supporting those groups, just to get a really baseline understanding of, how long have you done campus? Some people were like, we have never done it, so this is our first time doing it. What's your approach? How have you selected your schools? What profiles are you looking for? Just to kind of understand what was being done initially. From there, I kind of took a step back and was able to quickly see where there was some natural overlap being conducted, talent pipelines that were looking the same. Maybe we were going to a specific campus, but, we were going as two separate firms. Where could we sort of capitalize on that and see some efficiencies and kind of go to market or go to campus as one firm? So I did a lot of analysis on, what was being done and how can we operationalize this a little bit better. And then from there, I sort of started mapping out some more clearly designed roles and responsibilities. Okay, what can the recruiting team do and sort of take off your plate? In many cases, a lot of practitioners were really running recruitment. And, for those of us, we love our practitioners. We need them. We rely on them. But sometimes from an early talent perspective, we want them to be a little bit more hands off, and the recruiting team really needs to kind of step in. So how can we best use their time and make sure that they are getting to campus or getting in front of folks, but really behind the scenes, our recruitment team is really driving that strategy and making sure that we are approaching campus from one voice and one point of view. So that's kind of what I did. I started just baseline introductory intake conversations. Where was there overlap? Where can we create some efficiencies with some low-hanging fruit? And then let's kind of go ahead and build this out and design it so it's really impactful for everybody at the firm.
Wonderful. I think that's a really great initial story to get us started for the remaining questions. There's a lot of ones that I think we'll pick up from where you just left off. But shifting to our topic of spring recruiting, can you walk us through how you and your team prepare for spring recruiting season? Things like, how do you think about timing or identifying candidates early? How do you ultimately convert them? Would love to just hear a little bit about your prep work.
Yes, absolutely. So I know different industries sort of approach spring recruiting in different ways. So, I've been really in professional services most of my career. So for those of you who maybe are in a similar industry, that recruiting starts very early, right? And in terms of when you're identifying candidates, you're hiring students, sometimes freshmen, sophomores for internships that are maybe a couple of years out. And similar enough here at Alvarez and Marsal, I know that's not applicable to everyone. And even the stats, Diane, that you shared around just the job search and the activity on the platform being so peaking out between January and March. There's a lot of prep work that goes into that, regardless if you're truly hiring in January, February, March, or, if you're more in the pre-ID, perhaps you don't have these early positions that you're actually interviewing for because you filled them, earlier in the fall, and therefore they're all complete. So what we are doing and what I encourage everyone here to do is kind of take a step back and really get an understanding of your needs. Are we posting positions to fill and hire for that upcoming summer, right? Are we, is our strategy more, hey, we need to really work on branding and marketing. And so we need to kind of get in front of more of our freshmen and sophomores a little bit sooner. So we can start to get to know them and vice versa. And, hosting more info sessions and more branding opportunities, either on campus or virtually, to kind of identify, future pipelines. So I think it's all about understanding what your needs are. As the fall sort of wraps up, if that's a busy recruitment season for you, we really take an opportunity to kind of sit back here at A&M and say, okay, what roles do we still have to fill? Let's get those in line end of October into November. Do we want to host some events kind of pre-holiday break and really kind of start laying the foundation? We all know that sometimes students are a little tapped out at that point. So, attendance can be a little bit hit or miss depending on, what you're sort of hosting and if it's in person or virtual, but really to do some inventory on what you need, get those job descriptions ready to go. If you're like, we're set, we filled all of our jobs, we don't really need anything, but for our sake, we're still in that brand building mode. Really, I think we've made some really great strides over the past few years, but we're really trying to build out some of that pre-ID programming. So what we kind of try to do is approach the spring with a little bit more of these soft skills presentations, just kind of allowing students to know what our culture is like, allowing them to know, just what different opportunities we might have for them in the future. So I think it's really key to be transparent with what you're looking for. So real jobs, interviews, you're going to be getting hired, or is it a little bit more, hey, we're looking to sort of meet you and get to know you. So in 8 months or 6 months, when you're actually ready to apply for the jobs and our positions are posted, we can kind of get to know you there. So I think, it's just taking some of that inventory and understanding, how do we want to prepare for spring? And, are we really filling all of our budgets? Awesome. You should be in a really good spot. Or, are you looking to kind of, just meet some early pipeline candidates for the future?
I love that, Danielle. I think like everything you're saying in prep for spring, it's like taking a moment now to just really take a pulse on where you are. And brand is always on. So hosting those sessions and interacting with students, even if they might be a little tapped out, maybe they just don't join, but it's just such a great way for your brand to be front and center. And then when it is time, like when it's go time, you're already ahead of the game and ahead of your competition. So some really great takeaways there, I think, for the group here. You touched on brand, and I'd love to talk a little bit about A&M's employer value proposition and how you think about it for early talent in particular. Can you take a few minutes to just describe what that EVP, that employer value proposition, is in your own words?
Yeah, definitely. So we're in a kind of an exciting time right now. Our team and talent acquisition is very plugged into this. Working with our internal, employee relations team and comms team, we're actually going through an EVP internal rebrand, if you will, or trying to really be able to define it. I think first and foremost, most companies, I'm sure everyone on the call would sort of agree to this, but, you sort of reflect on what your values are and what, the core values are of the firm. And how do you then take those core values and make sure that your message is resonating with whoever your audience is, right? And I think a lot of us, and what we're finding actually internally right now is we're hosting some just internal focus groups with people in different channels, right? So people who came through campus hiring, people who came through more of the experience hire route, which is the majority of our employees, certainly at this point, and then more of those senior level talent folks, those partners and MDs who are coming in. We are uncovering something very, very interesting right now, which is the value proposition and what's resonating with all of the employees is actually really similar. So we truly thought that our EVP would probably need to be tailored a little bit depending on the audience. And I think what we have found at A&M is that those core values, because they are so front and center with everything that we're doing, resonate regardless if you're an early talent hire coming in, or if you're maybe more of an experienced hire talent or an MD coming over, from a different firm or organization with lots of experience. And really, I think with Gen Z in general, a little bit different than maybe 10 or 12 years ago. If people have been around that long, I've been around a long time, longer than that. But people who we're hiring right now really want to see a long-term career path. They are excited about connecting with a firm or organization who's going to support them, who's going to, have input to their training, who's going to really give them opportunities so they can stay a little bit longer. And I think, that's something that our firm is really focused in on. How can we bring someone in here and let them know that they are going to have a long-term career path if they choose to, right? We know lots of people, especially in early talent, may not look to stay super long, but all of this research that's coming out more recently is that, that is really, longevity is something that's kind of more important, and really connecting to the firm's values and feeling like there's a higher purpose is also really important. So we're seeing that. We're talking about, that with our particular early talent candidates, coming in and having immediate impact and really being part of a high performing team right away from day one is something that's really resonating with them. And just working alongside industry leaders, leaders who've been doing consulting for a really long time and getting that exposure to leadership is something that's really resonating with them. And we see that all the way through to our more senior talent. So we're really talking about that, to be able to, allow our students to build out a full career. But I would encourage all of you to kind of tap into whatever your company's or your firm's core values are and being able to pull some key themes out there, to be able to resonate with the students.
That's great. I was going to ask if there was a different EVP, whether it was Gen Z or more experienced, but it sounds like, consistent across the board.
Yes.
And what you touched on with longevity, there was an earlier this year, there was a report that we did looking at what does Gen Z want in an employer. And some of the things that were at the top were surprising. One of them being stability or longevity. Like they really are thinking about a place that they can join and see themselves growing in, and not necessarily the job hopping. I know JC mentioned that, the stereotype is that Gen Z is really looking to job hop and chase salary, but we're really seeing that students are looking for a place that they can build a career with. And so it's great to hear that you're also seeing that.
Yeah, I know it's been a very different shift because again, I've been around for a long time and truly, 10, 12, 13 years ago, I mean, that was like people don't want to hire anybody from that generation. They're only going to be here for a couple of years and they're going to go somewhere else. And I think that just seeing that research and that shift here and the job market's a little funny right now. I think certainly in professional services, right? So companies naturally are seeing lower attrition, but you don't want people to feel like they have to stay somewhere, right? Like you want to create opportunities that are enticing, that people, are choosing to stay, regardless of what opportunities may still be out there. So I think we're really trying to tap into that and find those people. You want to sell exactly who you are, right?
Exactly.
You want to put out there exactly what your firm is and have, people who are representing your firm, whether it's recruiters, whether it's professionals who are out there to be able to really talk about it. So when you're hiring folks, they know what they're signing up for. There's no surprises. And, that in turn just sort of, pulls through folks who will stay longer and who are excited to be there. And, you're sort of assessing them up front. So I think it's really important to be really genuine and really, straightforward with who you are as a company and, attracting those right people and having, assessments in place to be able to talk about it and also like probe on some of those things that are really important to your organization.
And I think that really ties back to your earlier point on the value of doing some of these sessions in like lower peak moments and times. It's like that's another opportunity to showcase who you are and make sure that the folks that eventually may apply to your roles really already know what they're getting into and ahead of time. So I love that. I think you touched on a lot of the next question, but maybe if there's anything that you missed, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what channels or approaches that you think you found that really resonate with Gen Z that ultimately converts them to apply and accept an offer from you.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I'll kind of go back to my first little stint around like, good? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was a little like
me or you. So I was just going to check.
Sorry, I thought like something funny popped up on my screen. So okay, thank you. I came into the office today because of good internet connection, hopefully. But anyways, so going back to my earlier discussion around not having a lot of early talent around, right? Like we're not like the big four who have been doing early talent recruiting forever, and some of those big corporations who just have a really stable, well-known program. We really have found that word of mouth and leveraging our former interns, as well as our current employees here who have connections at firms or maybe have different referrals who come in. That was what we were sort of built on. We're obviously
Oh, you might be back. but you are also muted. Looks like you have good internet.
Like what? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You're back.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where I left.
Um,
Left.
I also,
Former interns.
yes, you were,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. So former interns have been a really great way to kind of leverage this, to resonate and just meet folks. We're using ambassadors back on campus, still like relatively new. We're kind of having more specific training and things like that. But leveraging our formers has been a really great way, and just kind of continuing to build our brand through organic relationship building. It's a people business. Recruiting really is like meeting folks. And just getting them connected to the right folks has been really beneficial for us.
It's another really great point. One of the things in a lot of the conversations that I have with a number of our customers is, at different points in time, they'll have actually their employees record a quick video. They'll post it to the Handshake feed, and then also have their former interns, just give a quick blurb on the Handshake feed to, again, sort of share that word of mouth in a more broad way. So I think leveraging those prior, employees is a really great way to continue to convert those new candidates for you.
Yes, and I think that, sorry to interrupt you. I think
No,
that's a
no,
great
no.
point just around, this generation is just consuming information 24/7, right? So there is no shortage of ways to be able to get in touch with them, or get in front of them. So I'm with you, and I think we don't necessarily have this huge budget to have really fancy formally produced videos, and I think that's okay. Like students kind of, I think, this generation resonates a little bit more with that just like authentic kind of quick hits. And so we're really trying to leverage that too, and just be like, hey, can you pull together this video? Of course our comms team would love things to be like beautiful and perfect and all the things, and it's like, that's okay. This generation just wants to see us and hear from us, and they're used to these sort of short 30-second quick introduction. So we're trying to get a little bit more on top of that too. Use the Handshake feed, just kind of put little snippets up there for folks to just, again, consume, but consume the right types of information.
That's exactly right. A lot of the videos that we've seen the most engagement with on the feed are just folks taking out their phone, recording a day in the life. And it is nothing like fancy, professionally made, but it's exactly what you're saying, that's what Gen Z really wants, and what early talent's looking for is just like, they don't want the professional, like, beautified video. They really just want to see what it's like.
Yep. Totally right.
Well, you've shared a lot of like what has worked for you and how you're converting early talent. Tell us a little bit about what challenges you've run into while scaling you said it was small and there sort of when you started and you've scaled it, but what challenges have you run into and how have you worked through them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, our firm is going through some exceptional growth right now. And with that, there's, folks coming in from different organizations, different leaders having points of view on what's worked well at their companies, and trying to implement that. And I think like the hardest part, honestly, has been just kind of managing the managing the change management cycle around putting some processes in place that maybe didn't exist before, and kind of explaining why they're important, that a consistent experience really makes a difference for candidates. They don't know the difference between our CRG group and our tag group, right? They just see A&M. And so trying to really get the business leaders to understand like, hey, consistency is really important, and we want to make sure that everybody who's kind of coming through or interacting with us, walking through our doors, is having a really great experience. And of course, there's going to be tailored approaches here and there. Not everything is the exact same, but trying to build out those processes and put a little bit more infrastructure in a place that is very entrepreneurial. We're very proud of that part of our culture, and you have an idea, kind of go do it, and run with it, and all the things, right? And so we don't want to stifle that, but there are some some instances where like we do need a little bit of process and a little bit of control over that. So I think that's been kind of the hardest part, is just, making sure that like we're really, encouraging people to be involved, use their creativity, but also balancing that out with just, making sure a consistent process is being put in place, and experiences are the same, again, regardless of your entry point into our firm.
I think that probably, I'll speak for everyone here. I'll speak for myself. Those challenges seem very relevant for many folks. All right. Well, earlier you were talking about the efficiencies that you brought to A&M. You were looking for those when you were doing those intake calls.
Yes.
It is the age-old question, efficiency versus quality. With really busy seasons and limited resources, how do you really balance being efficient while still making sure that you're bringing in high quality talent?
It's a great question. And it's hard right now. I think we've all seen articles and we're feeling it, right? Just the application avalanche, I think is what they're calling it. And, just this, again, this accessibility that that students have. Again, I'll kind of go back, I'll age myself a little bit, but, 15 years ago, it was harder for students to sort of get access to some applications. There were some organizations that had open apps, but a lot of them, were a little bit more targeted towards schools. So now, we're sort of in this age where everybody has access to everything, and students are feeling a little bit nervous, I think, about their responses, about hearing back from employees, and they're just applying to many jobs, some of which they don't even know, or that they're not qualified for. They don't actually want to be in Texas. They really want to be somewhere else. And so I think getting through that is really challenging. I think you can do some things up front to sort of help you out. I think this is kind of silly, but like having really clear job descriptions, right? And really clear qualifications. So when you're getting these applications, you can either, students are either dispositioned quickly because they don't meet those qualifications, or you can automatically say, something around why they're dispositioned, but having, clear things up front to just sort of reduce that bottleneck. So I think like leveraging some automation there, if you can, working with your hiring managers to sort of refine job descriptions as things become a little different. Not everything is going to look the same today because of technology and just, things happening in your organization that maybe the job description you used 12 months ago is not relevant any longer, right? So looking at where you can be thoughtful around automation, scheduling. I think if you have scheduling tools, trying to kind of reduce some of that manual scheduling back and forth. I think just building trust with your hiring managers too. I kind of talked about, when I was designing the different roles and looking at like who should be doing what. Okay, we need the professionals to kind of focus on this thing. So us as recruiters can focus on these 10 things, and making sure that your stakeholders know that you're the subject matter expert in those areas, and they don't have to worry about it. You've got it covered, right? You understand the business, you understand what they need. So you can kind of get through those apps quicker. So I think, there's a lot of amazing tools out there. We don't always know how to use all of them. And I think they're changing so rapidly, but being thoughtful about, your job descriptions, being thoughtful about how you're interacting with your hiring managers and your teams internally to kind of get people through the process quicker, scheduling tools, all those things to kind of help. And just looking at data, we have a lot of access to data. So, where are you spending your time? What's getting you the best results? Should you sort of, just because you've been going to this school for the last 5 or 6 years, you're maybe not getting any hires. Okay, let's not go there anymore, right? Let's take those resources and that time and sort of shift it somewhere else, and being able to kind of look at the data that's in front of you too, and partner with your teams to make some of those decisions will help a lot.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think like, you started and you were like, it might sound silly, but getting back to basics, sometimes that's really what it takes. And I think even A/B testing. So you try a job description, you were saying like 12 months later, maybe that job description doesn't make sense anymore. You could try 2 different ones and see if there's one that really like resonates more, varying the length. Again, some of the folks have mentioned that job descriptions and job postings are different. So you should have a little bit more of a marketing piece, incorporate your values, all the things that you've been saying, and you can really see what works and what doesn't. And, I think there's all the tools that you mentioned, automation is key. Hiring is still very human, and there is a piece for us all in that, but helping sort of whittle down the human conversations you want to have, and leveraging tools to help you do that is a really great key point. I know we have just about 10 minutes left. And I saw some questions or comments around mentorship in the chat. I'd love to hear a little bit about how A&M showcases mentorship or growth opportunities in a way that really feels tangible to students.
Yeah, it's a great question. Mentorship is huge. I think even for all of us, right, who are professionals and looking to build and expand our career, but certainly for these younger hires and this early talent, we as organizations and firms need to be able to wrap our arms around them. And, especially if we're maybe our training programs are not as developed, right, as we'd like them to be, or it's a work in process. And so we really need to identify people, internally who can properly onboard folks and act as a mentor or coach, outside of their formal performance manager. And we do that as for our interns when they come in. I'm sure many people here have a mentorship, program as well, but we really try to set that up and create really clear expectations for the participants who are, internal full-time employees, to really be able to make themselves available for silly questions. How do I enter time? I don't know how to run this expense through, and really say, hey, this has to be a really safe space for the interns who are coming in. Oftentimes, if we can have that, that mentor who they were matched up with as an intern be their mentor, their onboarding buddy when they start full-time, we really try to do that. We emphasize different networks of belonging groups or different other, smaller groups within offices, and encourage folks to kind of get involved there. So this past summer was the first time that we shared with our intern class who was coming in, what networks of belonging, we call them ERGs or networks of belonging, are you interested in? Would you want a supplemental mentor or, small networking group? And so many of our interns opted into that. So just giving them as many tools and opportunities to kind of feel welcomed and kind of feel supported when they start here, I think makes a huge difference. And also I think it should be said that as recruiters, like, we really can kind of act as that person a lot of times. Sometimes it's a lot, we don't want to, but don't really sell yourself short in terms of the amount of influence that you have truly on the interns as well, and or new hires when they're starting. A lot of times you're some of their first interactions. You might be their kind of safe space or their go-to person as they come through the process. And I think it's really valuable that you stay connected with them and you sort of get a pulse on what's going well, what's not going well. It can kind of help shift some of your recruitment if there's issues, right? Kind of raising that up the food chain to make sure that, people are aware of that. You can tweak your program. So I think, like, don't sell yourself short as a recruiter as well. It's one of my favorite times is when the interns are with us. I just feel like it's always been like that, for many, many years. I've always loved when the interns come and the new hires. It brings a lot of energy. And again, you're oftentimes their safe space. So, kind of continue that too, so you can be an advocate for them as well as, the professionals who they're obviously joining and the teams that they're working with.
I love how you've tied so many things in there really well. I think, we're talking here about the value to interns and that mentors provide, but there's such a value also to the mentors themselves, especially like tying it back to some of our earlier conversation on longevity and being able to build your career somewhere. Mentors have this opportunity to really make an impact and maybe in a less formal way, really help develop an intern or a new hire. And that could, really tie into where their own career is going. And so, especially if they themselves were once an intern and you sort of do that, that's super helpful. So I love that. And then I think you yourself reminding us as recruiters to tap in and tie in with interns is also really great. It's a great way to get that data and that feedback, and then, use that data to make different decisions. We were just talking about that in the last question. You might change the way that your recruitment strategy is for the next go around based on what you're hearing from the intern group. So I think these are all really, really good pieces that is very important for us to keep top of mind.
Yeah, you might get intel, right? I think as a recruiter, I've gotten lots of intel and details that, maybe they don't feel safe like sharing with someone else, and it's valuable, and you're not looking to sort of share that broadly, but, helps you inform on some of your decisions, right? And if there's a team that might need to talk to about whatever issue, I think like it's a very safe space if you've built that connection with the interns and or again, full-time hires. I keep saying interns. Interns are a huge pipeline for us into our full-time hiring. But don't sell yourself short on that deep relationship that you've been able to build.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe as a last question to wrap us up, we obviously have a really engaged group here, by the way. Everyone, thanks for the comments and the engagement in the chat. It's been great to try and follow along. What advice would you leave us all with for, everyone here on how to strengthen or redesign their early talent program? You were saying you were going through a lot of growth. Just like, what are the key takeaways everyone should leave with?
Well, I think it's a very exciting time for early talent. I think that different industries are being impacted differently, with automation, AI. And I think it's a really interesting time to sort of take a step back. And, if you're in an industry, I think professional services is one, right? That they're like, oh my gosh, like we can automate all these things, or, we don't need as many, entry-level hires as perhaps we once did. Okay, let's take a step back and understand with the business what your workforce planning options are, right? So I think you can partner with the business in a different way to understand, what those needs could potentially be. I think if you're in industry that's maybe less impacted, it's also a really critical and interesting time to tap into some talent that is going to be available to you. Perhaps they were going to go into this, other industry that's a little bit more competitive, or there's a little bit more unknown over here, right? And this feels a little bit safer, and it's not something that they maybe considered before. I think really take the time to understand your value prop, what your organization can kind of bring to these students, and really take advantage of that. I think, it's a really exciting time to be thought partners with the business, to, understand their needs, to be able to leverage data, to, look at different trends that are happening internally and externally. And if you're in an industry or an organization that maybe has been really fighting for talent, keep fighting. I think that there's going to be a really great time for right now in the next 3, 4, 5 years that like this talent pool is going to be excited to hear you. You're going to be able to get in front of them, as I mentioned, around just information consumption, take advantage of that. And, really they want to hear from you. So just, kind of don't shy away from just, getting out there and really branding and marketing your organization, and, be true to who you are. And I think you'll just get the right talent who wants to stay with you for a long time. So don't be scared. I think it's an exciting time for early talent, and to build out and different skills that you have and really showcase your company in a way that maybe, wasn't as available, 5 years ago.
I love the optimism, Danielle. That's that in closing, plus all of the other tidbits that you've given us. I think this is a really wonderful session. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experience. It's just really inspiring to hear from folks like yourself. And we just love how A&M is leading the way in building high impact early talent programs. So thank you again for joining.
Of course.
And thank you to everyone else who joined this session. We hope that you're walking away with some new ideas, some practical takeaways that will really help you connect with and hire the next generation of skilled talent this spring. Before we sign off, we have a quick reminder. Registration's now open for Access 2026. It's Handshake's flagship virtual event. It's happening May 6th and 7th. And we are absolutely thrilled to share that Wendy Stratman Miller, the Chief People Officer at McKinsey & Company, will be joining us on the main stage alongside other leading voices that are really shaping the future of hiring. So up next, we'll transition you directly to the next session, From Trends to Talent, What 2025's Viral Moments Teach Recruiters. If you're joining live, you'll automatically be redirected. No need to do anything on your end. And I just really want to thank Danielle again, and thank you all for being a part of this conversation. We'll see you in the next session.
Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye.